Always on this third Sunday of Advent, we have this time for rejoicing, and our color changes a little bit, and we are a little closer to Christmas. Oftentimes, though, when we think of rejoicing, we think of smiling and being happy and everything being copacetic and being sated and all of those sorts of things. But in reality, when St. Paul talks about rejoice always in the Lord, St. Paul, at the moment he's writing this, is in prison. He is in prison, and he says, rejoice always. And the people that he is writing, the Philippians, are under some persecution. And he tells them, rejoice always. Again, I say rejoice. It's a strange sort of thing. We don't think about rejoicing and suffering and difficulties all in the same time. We think about them as something totally separate. So rejoicing would be something that would be without difficulty or suffering. And yet, for followers of Jesus, indeed, rejoicing in difficulty and suffering is very important, because as Paul would remind us in another place, that when we suffer, we participate in the suffering of Christ. And if we are able and blessed to participate in his suffering, so too will we participate in his glorification. And so it's something for us to spend a little time thinking about the need for us to rejoice, not just when things are going okay, but also when there are difficulties in our life, when we have those sufferings that we have to endure for various reasons, that really we are participating in a great act of Jesus' redemption as we share in his sufferings. You know, this is why at Christmas time we're very generous, and in our generosity we're reminded of the number of people who do suffer in our world. Number of people who suffer from lack of adequate food or clothing or housing or other things that we take for granted. And not only is our charity towards them important, but really what's more important is our realization that their suffering is part and parcel of the suffering of Jesus himself. And we too can partake of and join them in their suffering, even as we help them and are charitable to them. This is a significant thing for those of us who follow Jesus, because we like to skip to the end, you know. We always like to get to the happy ending. But really, what's getting to the happy ending is all of our ups and downs in our life, and staying faithful to the Lord in all of that, and knowing that as we participate in his suffering, we participate in his glorification. The question that the crowds ask John the Baptist today is a question for us. It's threefold in the gospel. 3 times different people ask, what should we do? The Lord is coming, what should we do? And John tells the crowds who ask, well, he says to them, whatever you do, whatever you have 2 cloaks, give away 1. If you have more than you need, give to others who have not. And to tax collectors ask him, what should we do? And he says, stop taking more than what you're supposed to. And soldiers ask him, what should we do? And he tells them, don't practice extortion and don't accuse people falsely, and be satisfied with what you receive. These 3 groups of people are fairly significant in that these are the people that the leaders of the day would have never considered to be important. The crowds would have been the plebs, the people who were uneducated in the law, and the Pharisees and the chief priests of the day would have considered them less than acceptable. And so too, the tax collectors, we know what they thought about them. And the soldiers that come were probably soldiers of the puppet king Herod, and they were probably Hebrews, but they had to enforce Roman laws. So we know what the Pharisees and the leaders of the people thought about them as well. So these are three outside groups that come to John for baptism and ask, what should we do? And he gives them each a specific thing. And we can take for ourselves those same things and apply them to our life. What should we do now that we've been baptized, not by John, but baptized in Jesus Christ? How should we behave? We should share what we have with those who have not. We should not do it grudgingly. We should not do it in a judgmental fashion. We should just simply share. We should not expect more than what we really deserve. You see, a lot of times everybody's looking out for getting more and getting more nowadays, isn't it? Everybody has a sense of entitlement about everything, which is sometimes getting more than we deserve. And we should be satisfied with what we have. Doesn't mean that we shouldn't try to do better, but it does mean that we shouldn't be so much wanting more and more and more that we walk over other people, that we use other people, in different ways to get more. So these things that John tells them, he can tell us as well. And we too are filled with expectation that Jesus has come and will come again. And so it's a good thing for us this week to pose this question to ourselves. What do I need to do to be more ready for the coming of Christ? What do I need to do in these different ways? How do I need to learn how to rejoice in suffering and in difficulty? How do I need to learn how to more readily share what I have? How do I need to learn how to be more satisfied with what the Lord has given me? These are ways that we participate in the life of our Lord Jesus, and these are ways that we prepare ourselves for his coming. And Paul is clear to us that if we do this, if we participate in this fashion in the life of Christ, we can be assured that we will be acceptable on the day of the Lord, and he will gather us like the wheat into the barn.